people from moving into where the oil patch is, instead of letting them go there and then we can't drill within X amount of feet. How about we just close Colorado and let us get the oil out, and then they can move in?
Right. That's actually a really hot topic. There are a lot of cases, not a lot, but there are certainly noted cases where there's old oil and gas infrastructure, old vertical wells, particularly in the DJ, and then subdivisions have encroached onto those wells. And an operator might need to get in there, and do a workover, or eventually plug the well, and there's a big outcry. You can't do that, and it's like, well, but the well was here first. The people moved towards the well. That is not our jurisdiction. That's a local land use planning issue. Very controversial, very political. I would like personally to close the borders of Colorado and just keep everybody else out of it.
Yeah.
Like Facebook, I see a lot of, hey, I just moved here, and like, damn, why?
We need to build a wall.
Do you have the financial assurance rules all fleshed out and ready for April?
Me personally,
For your permitting stuff?
no.
Okay.
We do have an FAQ sheet on our homepage. If you just do, I think it's in just right there on the homepage.
Yeah.
There's an announcement for financial assurance. There is an FAQ on there, and there is actually a portal to submit questions
Oh, okay.
that will be answered at the May 10th operator
good.
meeting. So if you
Okay.
have questions in advance, please do submit them. It's easier for us to try to prepare a more formal and logical answer than trying to answer off the cuff. I'm sure there will be spontaneous questions. Jared Ellis, our finance manager, he will be a point person as well as Julie Murphy, our director. But me, I totally am like, I don't want to know any of that. It's-
Well, it impacts every operator in the state.
Absolutely,
So,
absolutely.
I don't know if everyone's ready for a July 30th deadline.
It's-
Submitting a financial assurance plan that we don't even know what that looks like. Is it a spreadsheet? Is it a document? Is it a
Yeah.
charts and all? I mean, those are all.
It's huge, it's huge, and that there will be a really, I hope, a very thorough walkthrough of that on May 10th, with some supporting materials available online by that date.
Sure. Great.
Yes.
Thank you.
So I have a question about, this is Oil and Gas Conservation Commission, but it seems very focused on well pad placement and siting. I've seen some thoughts and activities around reuse of oil and gas wells for geothermal energy and some different projects. Society of Petroleum Engineers was presenting on geothermal energy, well, those are wells also. Would they also apply in the same way, or is there a separate set of rules that would apply?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Geothermal has just recently come up, and we are kind of trying to figure out how that fits, trying to determine even if we have jurisdiction over it, because it's not oil and gas development. So I think that's in the office of the Attorney General right now. I think they're reviewing statutes to determine if we even have jurisdiction over that. Another sort of new hot topic for us is the potential for us to, at some point, possibly get primacy over EPA Class 6 wells, which is carbon sequestration. That's another, we don't have primacy, we don't have jurisdiction as it stands right now, it's just through the EPA. It's something that there's been a lot of discussion on, internally, externally, politically. We don't have a process for that because, again, we don't have jurisdiction, but I can see where that might be something that there's more discussion and conversation in the future. Because, again, that's not oil and gas, but it's certainly, building a pad, drilling a well, is something that COGCC has expertise in. So if we can provide our expertise and be a conduit for regulation or for support, I think we would like to go there, but right now we're not. It's out of our hands. So there's a number of, a third one that's come up recently is coal mine methane. So there's a number of potentially abandoned, but coal mines in the state of Colorado, which is under, I don't know the state agency.
The DRMS?
Yes, thank you. Where there's methane seeping out of the ground from these old unused or abandoned or only partially closed coal mines. And so there's a few different entities now looking at how can we capture that methane. It's just methane pouring out of the ground. It's certainly not good for the climate. Is it something that can potentially be captured and put to good use? And so again, that's one of those things where it's not really in our jurisdiction, but it is methane, so it does kind of fit. And so we're working with the AG's office to determine if we have jurisdiction over that. And if we do, what is our best course of action to provide support for firstly mitigating that methane. We don't need methane just being released. Let's put it to good use, capture it if possible. Again, not in our rules. We're still trying to define jurisdiction. Good question. Thanks.
The bureaucracy of all this seems debilitating. I've never applied for any of these things, but I can't imagine having to go through this process with you guys and then have to get it from there to somewhere, and then you're dealing with PHMSA to transport it across the ground. The fact that it's broken up into multiple agencies on top of the amount of hoops you have to go through, I mean, wow. Like, I feel really bad for people right now.
And it can all change in 2 years.
Yeah, that is.
I would say it like.
Right? I mean, every administration can come in and change that.
I would say from a consultation perspective, though, that's what's really opened up, I would say, these new rules is really allowing that collaborative thing to happen, which should have been happening anyway, because if you, I mean, I permitted wells in the Piceance, 18 years ago, and, we had the wildlife biologist, the archaeologist, the surveyor, you have all of these people out there to coordinate that, and that was the only way that you could get a large-scale development plan permitted.
Wow.
And so we were already doing that, but now this just formalizes it, and I think what for me is, it's helpful to hear you guys appreciate the back and forth between you guys. If CPW is going to say that, then COGCC is going to take that as they're the experts there, not you guys.
We defer.
So,
We absolutely.
And I think that's super helpful.
Staff defers to CPW's determinations on high priority habitats, on timing limitations, on BMPs. We defer to them. We don't have expertise in wildlife.
Yeah.
They do.
Yeah.
And our commissioner, so staff writes the director's recommendation and then punts it up to the commissioners for the hearing. By and large, the commissioners also completely defer to CPW. That doesn't mean that they will always take CPW's word and say, yeah, we're just gonna do whatever you guys say. I mean, there's a lot of thoughtful discussion about it, but by and large, COGCC absolutely defers to CPW because they are the experts and they have the most recent, most relevant information.
And CPW is involved in the pipeline process or the transportation process, or no?
So it depends on the jurisdiction. So if it's outside of COGC's jurisdiction, then that's where we have to go to counties and see if they have a county permit that they go through to get that. So.
And you're the source for figuring that out as well?
Well, not necessarily. It's more. It depends essentially on the project, because if it does go across multiple areas, and that's where I'll be involved. If it stays within the area, then I'll let the area take care of it. So. It depends. But I think to answer your question, that's part of the reason Sabrina and I are here, because these rules are daunting, and we want to make sure that you know that we're only a phone call away, because they can be overwhelming. Like, hey Brandon, how do you count to 5? Or what is an HPH? I forgot what the acronym stands for. We want to be that resource for you guys.
Yeah, I mean, there are still a few things in here that, every single location needing a wildlife protection plan when, you're, an existing location, 10 to 100 pages on a director recommendation for that. Those are the things to me that seem a little bit excessive, right?
And I can clarify some of that on the director's recommendation. We basically, so when an application comes in, it's the hearing application is the forms 2A, 2B, 2C. If there could be multiple locations, so we've had a number of OGDPs that have 4 Form 2As. And if you're familiar with our Form 2A, it's really got all of the technical detail, and there's something like 37 attachments that need to be, various maps and drawings and facility layouts and all of that. And so we want to make it as easy as possible for our commissioners to understand what is being proposed here. We don't want them to have to sift through 37 pages of different attachments, 4 times, plus a Form 2B, plus a Form 2C, plus a hearing application, plus all of Brandon's notes, plus CPHE's consultation. And so we try to basically take the applicant's entire package, condense it into one document and say, commissioners, we recommend approval, and here's why. They did this, they did this, they did this, these are great BMPs, CPW signed off on it, CDPHE is cool with it, here you go. And so the director's recommendation really is meant to make it easy for the commissioners to understand what is being sought.
Now, the flip side of that is when you don't recommend it, what is the recourse for that?
We have never written a director's recommendation of denial. There's Rule 604, which that's a different talk, and I'm happy to come back and give it. Rule 604 is basically the setbacks to people. So there's a little bit of a myth that there's a 2,000-foot setback to a house, a residential building in an RDU. Literally, the setback is 200 feet, not 2,000. But 2,000 feet is what the rules encourage. Stay more than 2,000 feet away from a house, and you're good to go. You don't have to go through jump through all the hoops. If you want to propose a location within 2,000 feet of a location of a house, there are extra hoops you must jump through, and you must demonstrate clearly and effectively in your application how you are jumping through those hoops. And so it's 2,000 feet is not a hard setback. It's sort of we'd like you to stay outside of this, but if you have to be inside, show us how you're going to do it right.
And the 200-foot is
That's a hard setback. I mean, you could request a variance to that. I would say they're going to not.
It's 1.5 times the drilling rig, so if the drilling rig falls over, it's not gonna fall.
Right.
That was how that came to be.
Yeah. And we do have, surface owners where they sign an SUA, a service use agreement with an operator, and they want to protect their pivot, their irrigation pivot out in Weld County, and their house is right in the corner of that section, so it's right in that little triangle where the pivot misses. That's where their house is, and that's where they want the operator to come in and put the well pad. And so there's some considerations about that. The surface owner wants the well pad right by their house. It can be 250, 201 feet away. It's not ideal from a public health standard, but if the surface owner wants it, it can be negotiated. It'll have to go before the commission, and the commissioners might be inclined to say, I don't know that let's try 400 feet or 500 feet or 1,000 feet. But it is within our rules to request that to see.
Okay, when do you show all the animals you brought with you?
Right.
Where are they? That's why I came to this one. I wanted to tell things.
So just before you answer that, I know we're kind of over time, so if people need to start leaving, definitely just make sure you grab all your trash, and then we're just gonna start. But if you want to stick around and keep asking questions,
Thanks
please
very
go
much.
ahead.
Very informative.
Yeah, thank you guys for coming.
Thanks for having us.